see what happens.
We will see what happens. Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds by nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Dave, and as always, I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
What's up, brother? What's going on tonight?
Not much. We're getting down to the end of this whole Kickstarter campaign, so it's it's kind of like a bit of a sigh of relief. While the work is going to increase, the constant watching to see what's going on will be gone.
Yeah. There is that. People are probably tired of hearing about it. They just gotta be tired of hearing about it by now. They're like, would you guys shut the F up? Nobody cares about your stupid Kickstarter. Blah, blah, blah.
It's not like there's 2,800 people out there who have already said, yeah, let's get into it.
I know, crazy, right?
But tonight we're to talk about prepared material, and that's kind of loosely attached to the Kickstarter. So I pulled out a couple different, or a handful of different sources that, speak in a variety of directions when it comes to prepared material.
You got props? You brought out props?
I got a stack of props here, yeah.
I'm leaving. You don't need me.
So, you've got the small that you can work from and work all the way up to, the full-fledged campaign. So you can go similar to what out of the box is. You've got Be Prepared, which are these little one-shot encounters. You actually ran one of these for your campaign the one night, and I thought it was really, really cool. But there's only 12 in here as opposed to out of the box, which is going to be 55. And I flipped through. I think there's some definite interesting stuff here. It's broken down in a way that makes it really easy for DMs. So definitely good things there. If you get into any of the cool D&D-esque crates that are out there, RPG Crate and Dungeon Crate both offer fully prepared material that's good for a session or two. This one here is from Dungeon Crate, which is Whispers in the Dark, which happens to be a Nerdarchy curated adventure, which happens to do with the Nerdarchy dwarves. This one here is 1/3 of what would come in a typical RPG crate. Comes with maps. It's got story on the front, how to get adventures into what's there, what the adventures might do next. It's got a map on the one side, and then the full breakdown of if you're going to take them in a typical railroad of how they would proceed through said adventure.
I prefer linear to railroad.
Well, yes, very, very true. From Goodman Game,
feels a little less aggressive.
Yeah, you're correct. My word choice was poor. I run the stuff for RPG Crate. I like what's there. I definitely dig it. From Goodman Games, you got 5th edition fantasies, and there's a large stack of them that I've managed to acquire over the years. And these are small little adventures. This one here happens to be a 10th level adventure, and it's a good.
It's got Wolfgar on the cover.
It's got a Wolfgar-esque kind of thing on the cover. But this one here is about 26 pages of an adventure. I have not run any of these yet, but there's definitely stuff that's in there. And then, of course, if you're watching our channel, I'm certain that you are aware of the full-on hardcover adventures that are out there, whether it be by Wizards of the Coast or other things. But you have got a plethora of material from a single one-shot to a many-session campaign story arc that can be run using prepared material. So now that I've gone through that, we can kind of talk about how you might use some of these different elements from the minuscule to the full-on story arc.
Oh, I didn't think we were going to talk about this. I thought you were just going to, for an hour, just show people all this stuff you have.
I don't think an hour is going to quite cover it. There's a lot of books and things and boxes that have, stuff is stored in. And especially if you start going off 5th edition stuff, then it goes, pretty wonky and crazy.
That could be true, for sure. I did see Arnick is in the chat, the one we've claimed personally.
Oh, for some reason my chat is not refreshing.
Yeah, your chat is like that sometimes.
Well, hello, Nick. This is the one that was the betrayer at the castle.
No, no. Nick, he wasn't in my game, but he's in the chat slot. I think he was in Doug's game. But I think we have this conversation every time.
I'm just stupid.
Scott was the betrayer.
Scott was the betrayer. Okay, I apologize, Scott. You strike me as a Nick. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, Scott's not here to apologize, so you don't have to worry about it.
Well, all right. Well, then I apologize to Nick for assuming that he was Scott.
And Doug's in the chat too, but he's supposed to be like on vacation or something, doing vacation stuff. I don't know what he's doing.
Well, he said he wasn't going completely,
off the grid yet.
Off the grid. So I guess he's in there for for something.
So Nick had mentioned about going to be a long wait for the maps and minis, and I'll just address this real quick, and then we'll actually get back into like the meat and potatoes of what we're going to be talking about.
Sure.
Good news is we found a printer that we're going to work with here in the U.S., so that is going to shave like some time off of us producing the products and getting things out, hopefully. Or if there's snags or hang-ups, it means they're going to be less detrimental to us being on time. So hopefully you won't have to wait as long as originally anticipated. So we're super excited about that. All right, prepared material and why we hate it. Oh, we're not talking about that, are we?
We're talking about how to use it.
Oh.
So,
Step 1, put it in a pile. Step 2, put the pile over there. Step 3, write down 3 sentences. Play D&D.
Well, while that's all well and good for an experienced GM, that doesn't always work for everyone.
That is true. Prepared material actually serves a lot of functions, and it can be really useful to a new GM because it does teach you like how to structure an adventure, how to write one, and so eventually when you start using your own stuff and maybe not prepared stuff, that it'll be a little bit easier for you. It'll be either a smoother transition. But there's a ton of other ways to use prepared material.
So the way I look at prepared material is, number one, it's going to offer a couple downsides. Number one, you can't take a book off the shelf and have it assume that it's gonna be able to tell you exactly what to do when the players go left, when the book is telling you to go right. Now, it might give you lefts and rights for a lot of it, but it cannot tell you how to do everything. It's not going to give you the RP of every single conversation. It is up to you as the DM to manage what is there, to freeform or improv the material that is not presented in the book, and to do your best. That's its downside. But for the most part, it's going to take into account what level the party is supposed to be. Everything that I just told you, gives you a guideline of, oh, this is a 10th level adventure. This is an adventure for 4 10th level guys or 3 6th level guys. Whatever its decided factor is, you've got it figured out. So you can go in and be able to manage, expected, threats, encounters that are set for what your players should be able to handle. Now, when you go to use that kind of stuff, you can, read through it. If you're talking about running a full campaign story arc, there's a lot that's there. I don't recommend you sit down and read the whole thing all at once and then just, kind of go, but definitely skimming, getting your important details and reading thoroughly through what there is to do. Again, I have my RPG crate stuff that I run. It's 3 cards. They're front and back. It takes me, roughly 15 to 30 minutes to read through it once. I try to go through it twice before I run the game so that I'm familiar with what's there and that I won't have to be referencing it all that often, except for looking at the maps, looking at, your dialogue boxes that should, that should or could be used. And of course, whenever you're in combat and you have to look at stat blocks. I think those are, all solid points that you should be knowing before you're going into an adventure.
Yeah, reading through, being familiar with the sections you think they're going to hit, especially in a larger adventure, is super useful. But not only that, like I've played with GMs that would read through and then they would get their highlighter and they would highlight things that they felt were important to them. They would get their pencil, or maybe the more daring, a pen, and put some notes on there, write some things, maybe and maybe specific to their particular players and their characters, or just a subtle change they want to make because of it's more fitting to the homebrew world that they're running. But yeah, you know what? Getting out the pen or a pencil and marking up things as you see fit, or maybe grabbing a Post-it, slapping it on a page, and jotting down some notes for yourself in order to customize the adventure a little bit more to your players and even to your play style. Or maybe you've got some players and they're just cheaters and they buy the books and read ahead, right? So you can just like switch some things up and change things, for those folks as well.
Yeah, it's highly recommended that you factor in who your players are and who the characters are, so that you have the ability to modify the adventure. Even if it's a professionally done adventure, the writer does not take into account your players and the characters in the group into consideration before they've written it. So only you as the DM are going to understand who that is, and how they game, how they play, what they're going to be interested in. So you've got free form that once you're sitting at your table, once you've decided you're going to GM this, whatever was written in the book, whatever was written there, doesn't matter. You're telling your story. You're telling your version of what's there. And you want to take away a magic item, you want to add a magic item, you want to make the challenge harder, easier. There's no one to stop you. You are the GM. You have the power.
Mike Gold is out there, but he can't see anything. He has a black screen. When you were talking, I was just kind of thinking, it'd be really creepy if they did write about your party and your players. It'd be like a horror movie. And then it all comes true.
So, Fred the Fighter. Wait. It knows my character's in here? Yeah, it's written right here. Oh my God.
Yeah. But, even more than that, though, like more than just running the adventures, which Shane, is combining Tyranny of Dragons and Storm King's Thunder to one adventure. That sounds interesting and very complicated. It sounds like way more work than creating your own material. But he's customizing, right? So there's customizing going on, which is awesome.
Well, just as long as he's running Storm King's Thunder, because Sky King's Thunder's not out yet.
Yeah, someday we'll hit the shelves. We're gonna put your face as the Sky King.
God, that's just going to discourage people from buying it.
Well, we need a horrifying villain.
Oh, well then, there you go. Can't argue with that.
No, that's great. But the other great thing you can do with pre-written adventures is pull them apart. There's like professionally drawn maps in them. You could just use an encounter. Maybe there's like traps in them that you like. And you can use that. Or maybe they included something like pixie dust, and you paid $50 for this book, and it's like a paragraph, and you can just use that one little thing from Storm King's Thunder that you spent $50 for.
Dave, you make it sound like that's something you've done.
It sounds vaguely familiar.
So Dave is 100% correct. Picking it apart. You've got NPCs, you've got monsters, you've got maps, you've got magic items, you've got traps, you've got locales, you've got all of these different components that, when put together, form a plot and an adventure. But if there's aspects of it that you don't like, or there's only things that you like, you can just rip those out and use them wherever you see fit. Just like modifying the material, you've got the ability to just modify, something else. Like, okay, well, I'm going to take this Be Prepared, and I'm going to take this, the Fallen Temple, and I'm going to mush these two together just like Shane did, and I'm going to come up with, my own little thing that isn't either, but both.
Absolutely. So, like you mentioned that I had ran something from Prepared, right? And like, one of the things I remember about that there was like an artifact item in it, which just happened to be a throne. Like even just pulling out something like that, just like an interesting set piece that maybe you wouldn't have thought of yourself, that you can be like, oh, you know what, I'll grab this and, you know, put it in the game and see how my players use it. Or I have another way I want to use that thing. And I see Ted's looking for it.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can find the right one.
Dun, dun, dun. I think there was an angel and some devils.
So atop the mountain, was that it?
That might be. That sounds like it. Because you guys were attacked by like it wasn't a solar. It should have been. Maybe it was. You guys are pretty high level.
Well, if it's correct, atop the mountain is for 4 11th level PCs.
Horn devils? No, not horn devils. The spiky ones.
I don't have them all memorized as much as one might think.
Curse you, Ted. Riveting. Let's all just watch Ted look through the book.
But I know we'd crested a mountain and there was a throne up there and there was things fighting over it and we had to get involved and stop them from claiming the throne and stealing power and whatnot. It was very interesting and it was laid out in a very cool way, and it definitely had that feel of we best get involved, otherwise bad shit's gonna happen.
Yeah, but not only that too, there was interesting set pieces that the players can interact with, and you guys did. Like Ryan's character was playing a sorcerer, and he animated a couple of the stone pillars that just happened to be there. So, professionally written adventures are great for that kind of stuff. They, adding stuff that you can use, and like that aside, you could easily have put that anywhere else in a dungeon, maybe. Pull it out the monsters, use different monsters, make them weaker, stronger. They're all great. They're all great techniques for, running a game of D&D using prepared material, but maybe not necessarily running, it as it was intended.
Right. Well, like you would run the Orcus Claws or How Orcus Stole Christmas or what have you, and it's supposed to be designed for a 3rd level party, and you ran it for like 17th, 18th level characters.
I did.
So like, that required copious amounts of modifications. Like, these super deer were disgusting devils that had been ramped up to be able to handle the power load that our spellcasters were able to throw out there.
And that's another example that I took a really low level adventure, but because it was around the holidays, I was like, I just want to run this for these guys, and I was like, I'll just double everything; it'll be fine. I'll double or triple the hit points, and I'll double their attack bonuses and the damage, and it works out fine.
You've easily got the ability to modify. So like if you're if you're talking about our newsletter that just went out, was talking about modifying things and are scaling up and down, and even that can be attributed into running these different adventures if you want to scale up or scale down one of these prepared encounters or one of these prepared adventures for the level of the party that you happen to have. So like these things all tie together.
So now you've been, like you said, you've been running RPG Crate now for a while, right?
It's years. I mean, we're just we're finishing up season 3, sometime soon. I believe within the next month or so. And I've been running it since pretty early on. I want to say during season 1, so it's got to be over 2 full years at this point.
Are you ready to give up writing your own material?
No, I still prefer to write my own, or as the case may be, and sometimes not. I mean, I've been doing a little bit more planning in advance than I've done previously, but I think that has more to do with the fact that we're on a set timeline for the current game, so I have to be aware of what session number we're on, and what I need to do to get to that culmination point at the end of session 12. So
So, do you think we covered the bases, right? So, if you're going to run pre-written stuff, so step one is you have to read it and know the material, or at least enough of it to get your players through. If it's like, Storm King's Thunder or something, it's a huge adventure. You're not going to get through it all in one session, so you've got some time. You just got to kind of know where the players are going. You might want to read through it all and then take some notes as you do. And this way, when you can kind of like foreshadow if it's not already in the adventure, if you want to do stuff like that, and if you want to customize it, it's probably easier if you read through and just take some notes as you do. Jot down your note, the page number, whatever, and then you would just read as you go ahead. So that's like the most important thing. Then the next thing is, can you and do you want to customize this adventure to your players? Do you want to make it not a generic standard adventure module and tweak it a little bit so that it either fits into your world better or incorporates maybe some of the stories that are going on in your game already, or has ties to your adventurers? Are there NPCs in this adventure that are already similar to ones in the backgrounds or backstories of your players? Can you just swap them out, like trade them? Like if instead of having whoever the NPC is, change their name and their likeness so that matches the NPC from a backstory. You can do things to tailor it that way. If there's like symbology or relics or iconography that's really important in your world that you use or is familiar to your players, there's no reason why you couldn't take that and start inserting it throughout the adventure in places where maybe it just becomes extra set dressing, or the adventure already has a magic sword written into it, and you just change the runes on it to match something the players are familiar with. Although I will warn you that this could spark them going in a direction you did not intend.
I will also say is, going beyond just the NPCs and characters' backstories is to take into characters' backstories, and have them have weight and meaning within the game itself. It's one thing to be just like, okay, well, it's just, it's here that, that NPC that you came up with, there they are, you can go talk to them and this and that. But if that NPC, is part of the ongoing story, it's now getting tied in bigger. If the characters mention that, I want to do this thing or this thing happened, have that be something that's kind of important within the story. And if you can find a way to tie it to the main story arc, great. Your characters are tied in before they even knew it.
Now, one of the things that I actually like doing whenever I can is running a pre-written adventure without telling my players I'm running it, and just kind of like folding it into the story. Like Orcus Claws is set in this village of, I think it's a mixed races, but I turned them all into goblins. Yeah, I turned them into these like fey goblins that kind of matched the goblins that were in the adventuring party. Just because I just wanted to have something that tied to the party a little bit more and get them interested. Because, the couple of goblins in that game happen to be based off of juggalos, so they're gobelos. And even they consider kind of like most goblins to be kind of a-holes. But, by introducing goblins that are a little bit closer to them, I think it piques their interest. I had done like a adventure that was a little bit of a tribute to David Bowie after he passed, and I used Jareth the Goblin King in there, which again had that same kind of effect with those particular characters. So many sessions later, by doing something like that again, I was able to tie it to the adventuring party. If there's some kind of like goal that your players have, is it something that could easily be like inserted into the adventure itself? Why not do that? But I think I've run a few adventures before without kind of telling you guys that it was like pre-written. The couple times that I've done it, I usually just try and sneak it in. And and I think like if you're able to do that and get through the session and your players don't know, that to me is like that's a resounding success.
And that comment you made earlier about taking notes. So if you've got the ability to pull out a notebook and jot stuff down, or have pages printed that aren't exactly like, oh, this is right out of a book, and you freeform what's there, you've got the ability to far easier run something that somebody else prepared and make it seem like your own, especially when you're not constantly looking at notes. If you've got the ability to just go with it, it's a lot easier. And I'm trying to get more familiarity with the material that I run when I'm doing these prepared materials, so that I'm not referencing the notes all that often. That tends to make it a lot easier on keeping the flow of it.
No, I totally agree. Mike Hunt from Unmade Gaming, he's notorious for taking and running pre-written adventures, but he runs more off of the theme than he does off the actual adventure itself. Like, he ends up making up most of it and changing most of it. He just tries to like stick to the theme of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he runs a good game. I was in a Numenera game on Saber Dice with him.
We were playing the Saber Dice, and when he said that, Jacob nearly had an aneurysm. So, which made it better, for sure.
So Nick says, I had my players declare war on a town because they were stiffed for 5 gold after defending the town because of damage the town suffered. Literally, the people at the table lost it.
People have gone to war for less.
Going to war for 5 gold? Dear Lord.
I mean, people go to war over made-up superheroes all the time, so, there's all kinds of reasons.
Oh, man.
So, at this point, if you have any questions, feel free to jump in there. Just put question in front of it so we can easily pick them out. I've been somewhat paying attention to the chat, so I haven't seen anything yet.
Yeah, I've been trying to... Yeah, my chat is refreshed, so I've been trying to watch as well. So is it next weekend is Keystone Comic-Con?
The 23rd, 24th, and 25th.
So, yeah, that's got to be next weekend.
We are doing a thing.
So Nerdarchy will be there. We're doing some panels and some stuff. So if you happen to be in the Philadelphia area and you want to come check out a con, possibly hang out with Nerdarchy, that is a way to do it.
Or if you just want to travel to the con and be like, hey, I'm going to do the thing. We got a coupon code floating around someplace to save like $10. Woohoo! Over on Twitter, you can probably find it, as well as over on Facebook. I've been sharing that around.
Awesome.
So you'll be able to. I think it's like $10 off. So hey.
All right, here's one. Dungeon Class says, my group let an entire town die in a horrible way so they could have a free town. They are now the mayors of this empty town. We didn't move in as mayors, but we totally made a mistake and let an entire town die in your game.
That's true. It was kind of actually wrecked afterwards, and it was full of monsters. So, no one wanted to live there anyway. It was kind of an improvement though, because it was always a terrible place to live.
That's true. But it definitely changed the world. So Kit and Kat, we are in South Jersey, but the convention is a hop skip over the bridge.
Yes, it is in Philadelphia. That is the rumor. I'm going to grab the link so that you guys can find it if you so choose. Well, I do that. Ted, talk.
Jared Watterson had a bar party member get one shot by a little girl with a rake for running away from the tavern. The party's wizard fireball. That sounds like a pretty horrific scene. A barbarian going down in one hit from a little girl with a rake. Meanwhile, the wizard fireballing inside a tavern. It's never good. I mean, I've been in many games where the wizard fireballs inside a tavern, and it hardly goes well. So it's just one of those things. So we do have a question from Dr. 534. Do you find doing your own thing with adventures or redoing pre-written adventures easier? Um, easily with both of us, it's running our own stuff. It's far easier to just improv and come up with stuff on the fly. I've been DMing for quite a number of years. Dave probably a decade more. So it's a lot. It's we've been playing this game for so long. We've learned the ability to just steal and plunder from everywhere, wherever anywhere that you might find inspiration, and pretty much that's all I do these days. I took my family out to go see the aquarium, and we're sitting here watching this corny kids movie, and I'm sitting here taking notes of like, oh well, how do I use this in my D&D game? And I'm just sitting there with this little notepad on my phone taking these notes.
Yeah, I concur, but I have a question. You, sir, are you indeed a doctor or madam, as the case may be? But yeah, it is far easier. It is definitely far easier for us to just make stuff up. That's what we do.
Yeah, it's just something that's there. Um, and there's times that we'll sit back and I'm like, all right, we've got this going, and I never know how much, the ideas that I have, how long it's going to go. And I'm always, worried that like, oh my God, did I prepare enough? Do I have enough ideas? And, I'm blessed to have a table full of veterans that I honestly, at many times, I could just put my feet up and let them converse and try to, get into stuff. But like going into the last session, I'm like, well, I'm going to do a combat that I thought was going to be the end of the previous session, but I over prepared and I didn't really prepare much. So I'm like, all right, well, they're going to be a fight, and then we'll see where it goes after the fight. And next thing you know, we're past midnight, and everybody's like, all right, can we end it here? I'm like, all right.
We've had enough of you, Ted. I know it's your birthday and all. You just want to go and go and go.
I have a lot of passion for this game, and as long as the people are interacting with what's going on, it's it's kind of like I don't want to say vampire, but like I feed off of that, and it gives me energy, and it keeps me going.
Give me your energy. So you hear that? Do not play D&D with Ted because he will suck all your energy.
Nah, it's not that. It's it's there.
Ted is a D&D vampire.
I'm a D&D psychic vampire. There it is. Jason Lawson, do you guys have any tips for running an epic dungeon crawl like DOMM? Dungeon of the Mad Mage.
Yes.
What's your advice, Dave?
Make sure you vary and mix up the kind of encounters you use, so it makes it more interesting for the players, right? You don't want to have all combat. You need exploration, you need social encounters, you need puzzles, and you have to have a dungeon that is going to work, especially a mega dungeon, right? That's going to work and give enough variety so it's not the same thing over and over again. How are you going to achieve that? That is probably the greatest challenge to making a huge mega dungeon.
So for some aspects, though, you might want to get into the monotony of it all. Getting into the exploration and the psychology of it. You could explain that, okay, you guys have been down here for days or weeks or however long it's been, and the walls, the ceiling, the floors are all exactly the same. And that in and of itself could be something that over time has the ability to affect the party. You can do a lot with those little things that a lot of DMs might not think about that factor in, because if you don't see the sunlight, if you don't have the ability to see the natural world, it can be a little disconcerting for races that are used to seeing that. I know in the mini terrain domain game, the Dawnbringers, one of the characters is an elf, an Eladrin, whatever. I always forget what she is, and she's definitely used to being outside far more often. They ran through, before I joined the game, the Sunless Citadel, and then we did Forge of Fury. So while we're in the Forge of Fury, we're inside this dwarven mountain range for all this time, and we finally get outside, and she's like, "Oh, thank God!" Like, she was so happy to just be back outside, and we're like, "Oh, I didn't know there was a problem." Because Jeremy and I are playing dwarves, so like we're used to this. This is home. Uh, so getting into the mind effects of that kind of stuff can be a lot of fun. And it also, especially if you're playing anything that could be maze-like, that monotony adds to that factor and makes it harder to distinguish paths.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely an angle that you can cover and hit. Is make like exploring the psychological part of it, and there's probably ways of doing that as well. I mean, that might actually be a good opportunity for some role playing. Like you can narrate a lot of that. It's not like you have to adventure through it all.
Speak of the devil, I mentioned mini terrain domain, and Jake shows up.
Oh, you summoned him.
I apparently summoned you. How you doing, Jake?
How do you unsummon him? How do you banish him?
I don't want to banish him.
That which can be done, that which has been done can be undone.
Oh, of course, but I don't want to banish Jake. Then I don't have a DM for Thursday nights.
Well, that could be a problem too.
So any other questions? Feel free to pop them in the chat. Other things when it comes to running mega dungeons, which I have to say I don't have a whole lot of experience with. It's not exactly my forte. But every once in a while you want to throw something in that doesn't make sense, but does make sense once they figure it out. You can go very themed with a lot of stuff, but throw them off the trail every once in a while just to send them thinking.
They're all coming in together, Ted. You got Scotty in there as well.
Well,
you guys are just having a reunion.
Well, there's still several players missing, but give it time and they will all come. Are there tricks to desk grip creepy things?
Yes, I would definitely say so. I think that should be described though. But yeah, I mean, you really need to tap into the senses. And also, like, this is a good area where it helps to really know your players, right? If you know your players, you can kind of like key in on what is going to creep them out individually. Like, if you have players that don't like spiders, use spiders. If like I had a game where there were moms in it, so like I used a wraith or a specter that was an infant. So it's just figuring out some of it anyways, figuring out what are the trigger points for your players. I mean, within acceptable parameters too. You have to know what's okay with your players and what isn't, but as long as you stay within those bounds, and then it's just a matter of describing it and like really tapping into the senses. And if you can personalize that information, even better. If you can tie it to something from the character's backstory, not specifically like this encounter is linked to their backstory, but it is something similar or like this time that something happened to their character or someone they cared about, and you can kind of like tap into that. That helps a lot. If you're going with creepy things, you may change your setup at your table. Maybe you play by candlelight that evening. Maybe you're going to use sound effects and music to stimulate things. Maybe you're playing in the winter and you turn the heat down, right? Like there's like subtle things that you could kind of do. Maybe you're playing in the summer, and at some point during your game you crank the AC up even higher. Because for some reason I feel like the cold kind of like stimulates that creepiness and fear as well.
And it's really about, as Dave says, invoking the senses. You want to not just be visual. You want to not just be auditory. You want to get the smell. You want to get the sense of touch. So if it's cold and they feel like that tingle, up their spine and on their neck, and they turn around and there's nothing there. Like, what are they gonna do? Like, so if you can get into all of that, making sure that you're really getting into it. Is the smell so horrific that they can taste it? Does it make them wanna just retch? You can really see how far you're willing to, or how far you can push them, and how much they're willing to buy in. And if you've got players who really do, if they buy in, like, just the descriptions could potentially like make them queasy. And then as they start, getting into it, they might be role playing, or they might be legitimately feeling it, but that's going to carry around the table, and it's going to, like, go and ebb out across the board. And before you know it, everybody's going to be feeling this and be like, holy crap, I'm not worried to be here. And that's what you're looking for if you're getting into that creepy, darker-esque atmosphere.
There's another one. Thimic 5 question. About combat encounters, do you use maps or theater of the mind? If so, how do you prepare the battle maps when your players can bring you anywhere in the world at any time, day or night?
So Dave is more theater of the mind. There are times that when we play on the table behind the webcam here, I have a battle map that's always out. I have a large selection of minis close at hand. I mean, they're within a couple steps away from where I GM from. So I've got the capacity to just be like, oh, you're going in a place that I wasn't thinking. I can just go into the appropriate drawer, pull out the appropriately sorted minis. Are like, oh, I need constructs, I need demons, I need beasts. I've got a box for that, and I just pull it out. I saved all of my RPG crate boxes, all of my dungeon crate boxes, and I use them to store materials, books, minis in a variety of different ways, and then I have them all labeled so I can easily find whatever it is that I'm looking for. So I can just throw stuff out. I don't do a lot with terrain unless I'm preparing it in advance, because I know where they're going to go. In my last session, they went to a cemetery to investigate. The premier set from the Pathfinder minis happened to be a cemetery, and I'm like, this is cool. I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to use it. And then I added some extra stuff. Actually, Jake from Mini Terrain Domain, who's here, had actually sent me some more tombstones, so I threw them in there as well, and other things that I had already had, and I just, like, everything cemetery related, put it out on the field, have things to hide behind for both the good guys and the bad guys. So I mean, if you've got stuff close at hand, you've got the ability to prepare, or be prepared, so that should they go in a weird direction, you're ready.
Also, Nick in the chat brings up a great point, and it's something we don't use too often, but it has the idea of flip mats that you can write on, dry erase, that kind of stuff, where you can just scribble down the scene real quick if you need to. And we've done that before too, where, like, I've etched things on paper where maybe we're not using a grid, and we're not counting squares, but, like, just as a representation. Matter of fact, we kind of did that a lot when I ran the game for Think Geek down in the DC area for the Halloween game. I was just going to run Theater of the Mind, and one of the players is like, paper, and starts drawing stuff, and the people are putting down minis. I mean, we did have a couple minis with us, kind of, and we just kind of, like, worked it out that way and did it, real loose. So there's definitely a ton of different ways you can do it. Usually, I don't prepare a lot of material, and I have, like, an encounter or two in my back pocket that I'm like, I can whip this out. And generally, they're encounters that I can throw down pretty much anywhere, or I'll figure out why it's going to happen in this location that seems odd.
And then if when it comes to the paper that you were talking about, when we first started moving away from Theater of the Mind, that is actually how we started. We used D4s for good guys, D6s for bad guys, and we would just draw on paper that was put out there, and we would move things around because I can I can remember a time when the fighters were out in front and my mage was in the back, and it's like, oh, the ogre comes up and attacks me. It's like, how is he attacking me? There's like 4 fighters in the way. So that kind of led us into this whole directional theme of, let's not just do theater of the mind.
Yeah, we did. We definitely came to it from that standpoint, from having kind of, adversarial GMs. Nick says in the D&D castle, the set pieces was epic, and the fight may not have been as cool without that model. You know what? Yeah, I definitely agree in that instance, because we did have like all the terrain that we put out. V from the Crafting Muse actually made us a brain on the fly, like 5 minutes before the game.
She's like, I'm going to take some paper towels, some glue, some red and yellow or red and white paint to make it pink. It's actually it mostly survived the trip overseas, so it's over on the shelf just because it was made by a friend. So I told her, I'm like, I'm keeping this, and I told her that it had made it safe, and she thought that was awesome. And,
totally MacGyvered it.
Totally MacGyvered it, as the Crafting Muse would do. But we put together a really awesome thing. Ash from the castle team helped me put together the whole cool map. We put everybody together. 17 players, 1 undead elder brain, 8 shield guardians. It was a pretty spectacular fight, if you ask me.
Fun was had for sure.
We got a hello from Wales from Callum.
Oh, nice. Hello back to Wales.
Greetings from this side of the world,
New Jersey. Sounds far less impressive. If you're just joining us, I think it's only fair to mention that we have a Kickstarter that's going to be wrapping up in the next few days. There is a link in the description as well as in the pin post, but also in the pin post and in the chat as well, you will find a link to get a discount for the Keystone Comic Con, because we're going to be running panels over there about streaming D&D. We're going to be doing it 3 different days, 3 different panels. It's us and a bunch of other cool people. We have got V from the Crafting Muse. We have James Intercasto. We got the crew from Devil's Luck Gaming. We've got Mike from Unmade Gaming. And we have Miss Ginger Ninja in the house as well. Hopefully I did not forget anybody. But I think that is everybody.
I think so as well.
Yeah, so that's going to be fun. That's a way for you to hang out with us. And we are less than $15,000 away from our final stretch goal, where we're going to announce something really cool in the Kickstarter. So can't wait for that. I think people are going to dig it. I think that's going to be an exciting time for everyone involved.
So a couple comments related to the castle. Nick says it looked like we prepared it all in advance. We had talked about it in advance, but had not, fully settled on anything until we literally were at lunch break. So it was like, are we doing this ourselves or are we doing this together? And literally, I stuffed my face, ran up the stairs, went and put together the whole huge battle map.
I mean, Doug, we're like, that was easy.
Jake says that one day he hopes to play and or run a game at D&D in a castle with us. I truly hope that happens, Jake. It'd be great to see you over there in that very cool, relaxing castle D&D atmosphere.
Well, I'll be there 3 weeks next year. Ted will be there 2 weeks. Doug will be there at least 1. So there shall be some opportunities. We'll let you know when registration opens up. Of course, everyone will be hearing about it more than they want to, as is our way.
So Brian Smith says, any fun ways to include a timer like the little hourglass at the table?
Yes, something bad and cataclysmic happens when the sand runs out. I mean, that would be the easiest. Or you need Well, I guess if you're going to go with a timer, so if you want to use almost like random in-game time, but not so random out-of-game time, a 3-minute timer actually works pretty good because combat takes a long time. So if you flip it, but it's not really like going to be true time in the game because it's just every round is going to always be different.
Right.
You could definitely have things happen when the sands run out. Random effects is definitely a thing that could happen, or maybe it's just a bad thing that happens. Everything like there's a pulse wave and it does damage to everyone that's living or everyone, that isn't a certain type or something.
So I mean that could be something, and it would definitely encourage those players who are indecisive when it comes to combat to be a little bit more decisive. Of like, okay, I don't care how many times I do it over the course of each round, it's gonna go off every time this this thing hits. So that could be crazy.
Yeah, Nick has got a lot of great ideas. Pits opened up, walls pushed together. One of the things I was thinking, like, pillars come down and crush whoever's in a certain particular square. Especially the first round, right? When you just, as the DM, you set it out on the table. You don't say anything, and then you just, when it runs out, you look at the particular squares, and maybe you know beforehand, and you see who or what is in what squares. And be like, oh, here's a column of stone. Make a deck save.
So Jake says that he ran a session on Sunday where he described the narrow corridor, the iron lever 20 feet away, and said, "What do you want to do?" And started counting slowly down from 10. That's got to be pretty creepy.
Yeah, now I want to know what happened when you hit 1.
Well, you could go watch out the game on,
Oh, that's right. They are recorded. So
they are recorded.
Can you give me the timestamp? I just want to know what happened at that one particular instant.
Oh man,
Ain't nobody got time for that.
So, Mike, Fraginator wants to know: is there any way of adding a stretch goal to the Kickstarter that if it hits a certain amount, we create the second channel and put those gameplays up?
$1 million.
Because he is dying to know what happens in those games.
Send them all the raw files here. Well, one of them still has to end.
That is true. But mine has been done for months. Like at least 6, because we've run 6 sessions in the new game.
It is sitting in the Dropbox. Just waiting for you, sir. Yeah, I don't know. We should do something with those at some point, maybe. Actually, I'm embarrassed, to be honest with you, because our production is so low. There's so many people doing such great things out there, and their sound is so good, and their video is so good. The way we shot those is really crappy.
And it leads to believe, or leads into why we are not recording the current games. But it's something that, we've got 30 plus episodes of the other game up, or of the game up, and there's people that do want to watch it. So it's one of those things that they want to know.
They want to know. Yeah, we'll figure something out at some point. The audio is not quite good enough for a podcast, and the video I don't know. That was one of the things we considered doing too, is do we go full on with a show, and do we get individual webcams for everybody when we record it, and do we start separating all the audio and do a good job and run it through a board, and then we settled on we're just gonna play games of D&D with our friends and not record them, which is kind of nice too. I mean, you don't have to worry about someone making an off-color comment, Mark. Ryan, that has to be edited out later, or figured out.
And there's freedom to not having to worry. No offense to the internet and the world that's out there. Not feeling judged. We can just sit and have a fun game, and we'll talk about the stuff that happens, and we'll let people know, and perhaps it will do something later with the concepts or the things that are done. I mean, every single session, I'm making at least one new monster. So like, I'm just keeping the notes and keeping the things forward.
You know, we don't have people watching us stuff our face with pizza.
Well, I mean, that was something that was, it was adapted that, you guys would step off to the side out of camera zone to eat.
And then we'd be like, Jabba the Hutt.
So Nick says D&D is more fun to play than watch. And there's definitely, something to be said for that. But, there are plenty of people out there who enjoy watching it. There's plenty of people who they have a hard time getting a game together. And if they can find a game that they find the people are engrossing and the story engaging, then they wanna watch it. And it's not all about Critical Role. There's plenty of great streaming games that are up there. I watched all of the first season of Dawnbringers before I joined the game, just that I had a little bit of concept, of what I was getting myself into. I thought that was really cool. But I mean, there are lots of channels out there, should you so desire.
Sharing the epic story glosses over the large amount of tedium, such as looking things up or arguing over points.
Need I remind you that there are some people who play D&D specifically for those things.
Yeah.
They want to look up rules and they want to argue over them, or whatever.
Another advantage of not recording the games is no fear of copyrights. That is true. Yeah, definitely. Like, when you have the bard and they want to use sound effects and things like that, you're like, oh, can we use that? No, probably better not. We're gonna be demonetized.
So Jake says some of our regular viewers of Dawnbringers are playing a game they organized on the MTD Discord right now. So, like, it brings people together in a variety of ways.
Well, so. Yeah, it creates communities for sure. That definitely happens even in our own Discord and the Saber Dice Discord. Nick brings up the question: how does your game change if you know you're being streamed versus in person? I think when you're being streamed, at that point you're not just playing a game, you're a performer, so you're trying to entertain the crowd as well, which is fine. But then it can be problematic too if you get too many people that seem like they're trying to outdo each other instead of kind of working together to do that.
Right. It's about the story, it's about the performance. And there are a number of great channels out there that do it. And if you're gonna just do your home game, it's, as we said, it's relaxing. You don't have to worry about the judgment. You don't have to worry about anyone other than those who are at the table that are going to decide the words you say, how you role play, what choices you've made. It's a lot more freeing.
That other 4 or 5 people at the table is judgment enough for most.
Coming from a DM who always questions, whether or not the people had fun, because I've gone to like great lengths to prepare a great adventure, and people are like, oh yeah, that was all right. And I've had times where like I've done jack nothing, totally pull it out of my ass that night. I'm like, oh my god, that session was amazing. I'm like, how does this work for you guys? This makes no sense to me. So I'll always judgmental, and when I don't have to worry about everybody else, weighing in on what I did. Yeah, I'll run what I did.
Sorry, you don't read the comments anyway. You're fine.
I do read them. Just don't read them as fast as you do.
Although I must say I've been slacking since Gen Con. Between the Kickstarter and Gen Con, I've not been responding to many comments.
We've had a lot going on, so.
and now we have to write a book.
Yeah, we have to get moving on that.
Well, thankfully the book is mostly written. The book is written minus, there's just some minor tweaks that have to be made.
No, we
figure
have to
out the maps and the art and the the 3D flat, or not the 3D, the flat plastic minis, figuring out what goes with it, what encounter, that fun stuff.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of time. So we have to sit down and go through it all and pull out all the different things that we're gonna need and make it happen.
Make it happen, Captain. With that, we're at that time already, man. Can you believe it?
Yeah, that's it's an hour. We did the thing.
We did the thing. But we'll be back next week. We'll be here Monday doing the patron only hangout. So if you're not a patron, become a patron and you can hang out with us Mondays. If not, you have to wait till Tuesday and we'll be here hanging out with everybody.
But if you are a patron, you can hang out with us both nights.
Both nights, absolutely. Also, did I mention we have a Kickstarter going on? It's about to end.
Sunday morning, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're gonna see how crazy it's gonna go in the last 4 days.
I don't think so, man. I think once it ticks over at midnight, maybe on the West Coast, that's it. Done. Finish it. So with that, thanks for hanging out with us, and until next time, stay nerdy.